Yeah, sure. I just wanted to introduce Eddie. Eddie's someone that I've known for a long time. Had to be fair, very very good friend of mine. But at the same time, highly respected golf consultant. I know many of you will know of Eddie, or even know him. He's very well regarded. He has a very sensible and salient view on retaining the traditions of the game, which I think we all probably hold very, very dear to our hearts, but has a very unique way of sort of fanning the flames of tradition of the game whilst introducing the younger golfers to the game that we all love. I think we first met Eddie, was it at parts from the PGA of America in California for the return games at Cordoval, and he's incredibly wise.
Might be handing over to you in a second, Eddie.
Am I right?
Yeah. Daniel, if you can hear us, you're.
But he also is very considerate to the challenges that face. We've got 30 minutes. I'm building you up for 3 of them.
Well, I'm here.
Go for it, Eddie.
And hopefully you can all hear me. And thank you for that introduction. Though it sounded as if you were in a shower most of the time, Daniel. But apart from that, to everybody, it's exciting to be here, because there's nothing that gives me more pleasure than to share my passion and share everything appertaining to where I feel sometimes the trends of the game are going. So, but before I do that, I just want to say a huge thank you for PlayMoreGolf for inviting me on board. As Daniel and Jamie I've known for some time in terms of where they want to take the industry, and they're very passionate, obviously, about getting different lifestyles into the game as well as everything else. And we're in challenging times now, so this isn't me trying to promote them in any shape or form, but obviously we're all in this game together to make sure that we make things happen and move things forward. So hopefully my slides are going to be able to share some different ideas as we go forward. But you will see a question, and the question is about the generation gap. So cheekily, I've asked Jamie if he just wouldn't mind just putting this question on board. I know it could be sensitive to some, but I don't think it should be really. Basically, one of the slides is going to be generating around the generation gap. And currently, I feel that there's a divide in our society, in our clubs, and in the workplace. And the present question is facing clubs and families is how can we bridge this gap? And this is what I really want to just while I've got 60 people there, it would be ideal to get that information. So I would really respect it if you could do that for me as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'll post that very shortly, guys. You'll see a poll being launched.
Thank you.
And throughout this, so there will be certain elements of those coming through. As I've made Daniel, I've made you the full host of that. I might need your assistance to do it because it's disappeared off my screen. So that will be posted very shortly. But Eddie, if you wanted to continue, everyone will see when that poll has been launched.
That's fantastic. Thank you. Well, these are my ideas, and there's a lot of things that are going to happen in the world of golf, in the world of leisure, in our world. There's no question about this. And these webinars cannot be successful unless there are questions. And that is vital for us all to be able to move forward. So if you can see my slides to start with, is that I think really on the whole for the last number of years, we've been on a fairly straight road. We know where we're going. We've set our budgets. We've had some good golf courses. Golf courses have been improving year on year. The management structure, the governance structure has been improving. It's really been very, very good. And the managers recently in all golf clubs that I know of have done a fantastic job. Them and their staff in terms of the challenges that that they've had. So the other slide onto the right-hand slide is this winding road. So I'm sure we've already experienced this winding road, and we will have done and continue to make adjustments as we go along. And it's that mindset shift that requires people to think differently. And it's going to be important that you get your teams on board, and how well you communicate. And there's going to be some junctions on our travels as well as everything else. And there isn't going to be time now to procrastinate. And I think, as we know, that the governance policies have started to change, and that's being able to alleviate those procrastinations and delays in decision making. I'm not saying that they're completely behind us at all, but the important thing is this rickety road that we're going to go on. There's going to be some mental toughness in terms of where we are going to start to have to make some decisions. And there's no question about that. And my view is that we should have plan A, and we should have plan B, and we should have plan C. And it's actually looking at the worst scenario. If we'd have sat here a year ago and said we wouldn't be playing golf and we'd have 2 lockdowns, that would have, and anybody had planned for that, then credit to you. But we know that the world is changing, and this is global. This isn't just us here in the UK. This is global. I don't have to remind anybody on that. But from a point of view of where we are going to go, it's really important to really get knuckled down into looking at the probables and the non-probables that can be presented to it. So that is my view. So as I say, the long straight road has gone for us, and we've got to start being a little bit different in how we move forward. Jamie, if you move forward. So again, these are trends, and you can't just change things overnight. I don't expect anybody to at all. You have to plan, you have to prepare, you have to talk with your teams, you have to talk with your boards. But these are the areas that I have a huge amount of experience on, and I'm very happy to share my thoughts, and I'll try to in the short time that we've got now. So user experience. Customer experience and customer service has been at the forefront of my development over the last 10 to 15 years, really. I've really felt, and with all due respect, I've really felt about 10 years ago, and a bit less maybe, that the service that we've delivered in golf clubs has been mediocre to minus. And now things are starting to change. And this has helped amazingly, the COVID situation, because we've had to really rise the bar. We've had to start to look at ourselves a little bit more. And teams have started to work together in a more cohesive manner. But my point here is do you really know your user experience? Do you really know your customer journey for each and everybody coming into your clubs? Because it's not difficult. You can't do it overnight by any means, but as I say, it's just planning it and phasing it through and knowing each touch point that affects each customer. And each touch point can affect a customer, and that customer can be, the next customer can become following on to that touch point, and it can be a totally different experience. And the job now as we go forward is to make sure that's a seamless journey. And it's important to make sure that we're consistently consistent. There's no good now looking, in my views, we've always, we can go on Airbnb and we can go on and Uber and everything like that. And we're pressing 5-star, 4-star, 3-star. 5-star is history. I want to see clubs now start to look a little bit more outside that box and start to take their service standards to the 6 and 7-star. And it is possible, but you've all got to work together to be able to deliver that. And what is 6 or 7-star? What is the best? And it doesn't matter whether you're a 1-tier club or a 5-tier club. Customer service is important. It's how you treat that members, the future members, your current members, and moving forward is so, so important. And as I say, every touch point, and you'll be surprised how many touch points you have within a club. And if you don't know them already, then just start to think about it. Just start to make a mental note now. And when this presentation is over, just sit down and write all the touch points right from the beginning. Why does that customer or member come to the club? And it's not the case of just going onto the website and he makes that decision. What's decided him to go onto the website? And the new customer isn't, he makes a decision or she makes the decision when she moves forward. So could I emphasize this? It's this customer journey is so important. And I've got an odd template I'm very happy to share with you. So the next one on my list is golf tourism. This is just waiting. Now, again, it's planning. Whatever I say, I help clubs to move forward. I help them to be successful. I feel that I like to think I'm transforming clubs to think a little bit more outside the box. But there's going to be a growing demand for leisure experiences now. There's no question about that. Families are being together a lot more. But what can we do? We have the greatest golf courses in the world, in my opinion. I have traveled in each and every continent, but there's no better place in the golf that we have here. But there's some golf courses that people don't even know about it. And I'm not going to say that they're these gems, because each club has its own characteristics. It has its own USPs. But do you actually know what they are? So golf tourism, in my view, is looking at collaboration. There's no question whether you start to look at collaboration with other golf clubs and start to have a little cluster where you will all want the same business, but let's just marry it together. A PlayMoreGolf, there you go. It gives you the opportunity to work together. And we all live within a tourism destination within this club. It doesn't matter. I started a 9-hole golf club in Roundy in Leeds. And if anybody is listening from Leeds, I'm one of those very proud people. I always tell everybody. But it's a 9-hole, it's a municipal golf club, Roundhay. I would give it a tick all the time. People should go and play it. It's got history, it's got character, and you're right in the middle of Leeds. But my goodness, some fantastic golf courses there. But look a little bit more from a business aspect, is what can you offer that you don't already offer to somebody new coming to that club? There are opportunities, and I would be more than happy, and I'm sure we all would, to give those ideas as well as everything else.
Eddie, whilst you're considering that and bringing new people to the club, what's your view around, there was a surge of members that joined the golf clubs in May as soon as golf clubs reopened. What's your view on the average age of that golfer? Was that golfer the same age as the established members, or did you see that group of golfers being maybe, my view would be they were younger members returning to the game, probably had a membership in the past? What's your view on that?
Well, you're absolutely right, Daniel. It's a younger member wanting experience. It's a younger member that's married and at home, but they're wanting to do things together. And what I've found on a number of occasions is that once they've established themselves into the club, they want to invite their family and their wives or partners to come and join them. It's a part of the social environment. And of course, if you've got a club, and we'll come to this club design in a moment, because I'm very strong on that, people are there. There is another point, of course. Tell me, Daniel, how many sets of golf clubs are there in garages that aren't used? What do you think?
I may have mentioned this before somewhere. I think people would suggest there are 3 million golfers in the UK, but there are 10 million sets of golf clubs in the back of people's garages. And this is about how do we move those clubs, for me, with the opportunity that's ahead of us, and the one that we've realised in May, is that how do we get those clubs from the garage, either from the back of the garage to the front of the garage, or God forbid, how do we get them into the boots of people's cars? Yeah. The members who I saw join my club and the other clubs that we work with, the average age of these golfers were 45, I would suggest, as an average age. And they found themselves with time, and it gave them an opportunity to sort of resurrect their golfing career, really. And for me, it's about, when you're looking to talk about technology, they're clearly more tech savvy, aren't they? But you talk about the interior of a club and a place that they'd be wanting to bring their family and friends, and I think that falls into the design point. I know you're going to cover that off in a minute as well. But they saw an opportunity to rekindle their relationship with their golf club. And I think the exciting thing for me is that, and we did some polling inadvertently. I think we launched, I inadvertently launched the wrong poll first, so apologies to everybody for that. But I think it's really interesting to see that the age of that person and how many of them there are, and then indeed what their intentions are when spring comes around to hopefully, renew that membership that they bought in May and June. So anyway, sorry, Eddie, carry on.
No, you've got a good point. But what else has happened is they want to communicate, they want to converse, they want to enjoy each other's company, they want to talk, they want to share those experiences, and those families join up together and share their experiences is so vital, and we need to get people to understand that this is an amazing game, isn't it, guys? Come on, health-wise, mental healthness, obesity, come on, get people out there playing golf. That's just an important part. The technology strategy, I feel now that I'm advising all clubs and businesses I'm involved with, have you got a technology strategy? Seriously, because it's catching us up. And if you think what's happened in the last few weeks, can you imagine what has happened is we've turned 3 years of technology and done something about it in about 2 months in relative terms. So now the rise of the digital golfer, as I'm explaining there's a huge development. And of course, this comes into, to a certain extent, of where the business is for the future. And if you haven't already sat down to start to look at your technology strategy, then please do so. I'm emphasizing that this can only be planned. And somebody such as me making you aware of it, and you think, oh, I've got to do it tomorrow. No, come on, just take your time, but make sure that you're proactive and you're doing something about it. Have you got an app for your club? If you haven't got an app, then start to consider it. Yes, it's a cost to it, but always you'll get a return from that. There's no question about it. You will get a return. What has happened also, and it's staring us again in the face, club managers, the majority have always wanted control starting times. Of course they do, because that's the only way that they can get clear data to be able to share with their boards where the business is going. Now, if I'd have asked in 5 years ago, some courses, right, how many rounds have you had over the annual year? It was anything from I'll put something in it was 18,000, it's 25,000, it was 15,000. No, that's not right. I want to know the detail of my business. I want to be able to share that, and I can expand on that, and I can move those business opportunities forward. Would you agree, Daniel?
Yeah, I would. I would also think, you talk about the technology piece, those clubs, of which there were somewhere in the region about 250 clubs, implemented a new tee sheet during that very urgent window of time. But what we also found from that was that the younger golfers that we talked about earlier, Eddie, they have already fully loaded lives. Whether a mum who has a job and the family, father has a job and a family, that they historically they can't play golf traditionally at Saturday and Sunday mornings because they have family commitments. Probably one of the reasons they gave up being a member, to be fair. Yeah. And then with there being a tee sheet in place, you can see when these golfers, these new members, are playing the game, and they're playing it off peak. They're playing it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon when they've done what they need to do with their other commitments in their lives. And let's be fair, they might love the game, yeah, but it comes behind their families and other commitments in their lives. So this new audience is fabulous for us, because the new audience comes in, they can't play on Saturday morning at 8 o'clock because they've got football games to go watch. They've got their daughter to take to a netball game or a football game, or all those things. So it's not as if, when you look at the tee sheet for those clubs who've introduced one of the ones who had them already, that they don't even compete for that sacred 8 minutes past 8 tee time on a Saturday morning that everybody wants, because it doesn't fit into their lives. They might only play 15, 20 times a year, but they have a real desire to feel again like they belong to a club. So it's really, they're exciting times for sure.
Well, I'm conscious that my time is coming, and I'm okay. I haven't seen anybody do my generation questions yet.
Yeah, I've just done it, Eddie.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right,
The
all right.
The other poll had closed. We've got nearly 60 people on. So
oh, brilliant! Oh my goodness,
over 40 people have voted on the first one. So yes, everyone, the generation poll. Where if you can share your information of where you sit within that'll be fantastic. So there's a couple of questions just gone live on that as well for everybody. So yes, feel free to vote away. So that's in action right now. I can see,
it's flying along, Jamie. Absolutely flying along.
Exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate that, everybody. Right. Really do. And you'll see why in a few moments. So as I say, I'm conscious of time. So club interior design, again, I've been very fortunate and very lucky over the last couple of years to be involved with clubs that have had interior designs, and I've been able to share some ideas, and there's been some ideas shared with me. But we've got to make clubs, the design of the future is to make them welcoming. By all means, and Daniel, you mentioned it, I am a man of tradition, but I respect tradition, but if it's impeding on progression, then you've got to do something about it. So we have to do something about it. And some of the clubs are not totally inviting to move forward. And again, this isn't something you can do overnight, but obviously going back to the first slide and that windy road, a lot of you have all put tea times and the structure in there, so you have to make a decision fairly quickly, and that was easy for you to be able to convince boards, and boards were convinced to do it. So now then the next thing is, what are we going to do to optimize the space within the clubhouses? Because there is going to be some changes. We've already had those changes, and in terms of where we're going, and we've got to start to be honest with ourselves. There's going to be some people in administration that we can probably start to think that they can work from home. And so do we actually need the office that we did need in the beginning? Do we actually need that room cluttered that we could release it and it's become redundant? So it's going to be valuable space. And it's starting to look at that. So if the only thing I'm doing here is to make you just start to think a little bit more out of the box of what we can do to be able to maximize those opportunities as well as everything else. So that's an important part. And of course that comes into food and beverage as well as everything else, clubhouse design, because there's a new variety. Food varieties are going to change. The space for food, obviously where we are now, whatever the restrictions will be, people are going to be very careful with how they digest their future dining arrangements. And from that point of view, food and beverage is a profitable concern. And I'm sure, Daniel, you've got some interesting points there to share, have you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I have. I think that, finding other ways to drive food and beverage revenue is going to be vital, isn't it? Was those larger corporate events, those larger social golf outings, even when vaccines come along and all that, and all the good things that are hopefully on the horizon, I do still feel that people are going to be nervous about making decisions about big parties, big golf days, big golf events. And I think it's about sort of creating more smaller, bespoke, potentially more frequent golf events and providing that product to partner businesses. For those who have corporate golf days, how do you convert a corporate golf day budget that sits with a partner club? How do you convert that into a corporate membership so they can use the golf club all year round? And inside that corporate golf membership, you might add in a couple of small golf outings that the partner business could decide what they look like. Because Are they going to hold meetings again? Are they going to have meetings in their head offices, go to hotels and conference venues? Or are they going to have, 6 of their best customers and 4 of their competitors' best customers on a golf outing where they can really interact with those key current partners and future partners? I think we need to think really carefully about providing the products and the services and the membership categories that suit what the customer's looking for, because that what's been a great success before, doesn't mean it's going to be a great success in the future, especially not with the world changing as it most definitely is.
No, absolutely right, and very fair comment there in terms of where we are. It's getting people to understand the club environment, and yes, I'm going to mention the word profit or surplus. We've got to start looking at that bottom line and start to make things happen. And again, that comes back to either plan A, plan B, or plan C. Start to prepare yourselves. So, and the next slide is create a thorough communications plan. I go to clubs and look at this in fairly in detail. And again, it comes back to a little bit about the touch points, but what do the next generations of members need? Are we actually communicating with them clearly? And I'll give you an example. I think many of you will have had new members all of a sudden during the first lockdown, and probably some of the members in that category are 45, late 40s, even earlier. And have they just been left to sort of wander into the club? What they need to be looked after. They need loving, they need care. So we need to make sure we communicate with them. And communication is going to be so vital. And I know you, and it brings me on to the families. Are you prepared for families? We're all talking about, the governing bodies are talking about bringing families and being able to be more accessible to golf clubs. And some clubs have really made a huge effort, but are we really prepared? And are we talking about it? And are we paying lip service to it? This is not a time to pay lip service to this. This is very important. This is part of being able to create this environment, this community, and get people involved in golf. They don't have to be golfers. Can we start to look at the old-fashioned way of a social member? So creating the opportunity to use the club, but we've got to be prepared for them, and we've got to give families what they want. And how we communicate to families 10 years ago is no good anymore.
I think something to consider here, Eddie, would be that, if we want families, we're also talking about children, aren't we? Young people coming to play the game.
Yeah.
And when you think about the average age of the established member at a golf club, we know that number is north of 60. The average age of a traditional 7-day member is north of 60. Some people might say it's 62. Some people would say it's 65. It's in the rounding, isn't it? The people that we're looking to bring to game, the juniors, are their grandchildren. So the real opportunity that we have is this new influx of the 45-year-old member as an average age. That's somebody's mother and father. It's not somebody's grandmother or grandfather, is it? And I think that the opportunity is to capture these people who are what we might term as middle-aged. I'm 50 now, so I'm not sure where that puts me anymore. But capturing those people and getting that to become part of what they do as a family. I gave you an example of something that happened to my family. I'm very fortunate. I have a son who's 17, daughter who's 15. They are incredibly gifted athletically, playing for the country and the county at different sports. I happen to have a twin brother, and his son and daughter are the same age as mine. And through lockdown on Father's Day, our children came to us and said they wanted to play golf. So sunny evening in June, my twin brother and I carried our daughter's golf clubs. They're not golfers, but I have access to golf clubs. My garage is full of them, like many other people. And my son and his cousin. And we thought the kids might want to play 2 or 3 holes of golf. We thought they'd all give up before they started. We teed up at 7 o'clock, and at 10 past 10 at night, it went dark whilst we were out at the extremities of the golf course, because they just didn't want to give up. They just wanted to keep playing. And the joy that I got on Father's Day of shooting the breeze with my twin and our children will stay with me forever. And I was there thinking, clearly I'm thinking about being a dad, but at the same time I'm thinking, isn't this what our game is all about? And then we've got these new members who joined. How do we wrap our arms around them and indeed make it accessible for them to bring their children? I just think something I just didn't feel I could walk past almost. But.
Well, that's a great story, and there's many of those stories. And I've got the poll results here. Thank you so much. Everybody's contributed. So we've got baby boomers 52%, Generation X 24%, millennials 22%, hey, Generation X 2%. I want to know who you are. And how many of you have children born from 2011 onwards? The answer is yes, it's 16%. But listen, this is so important, and I'll come to it just in a minute. But I do know, just what I remember, there is a manager that I know is retiring in January. Jim Callaghan, you're out there. May I wish you all the very best, because you've made a huge contribution to the management, the education, and everything. So I'm sure you can hear me. So all the very best. Anyway, let me move on. So how do you communicate? Well, this is coming up to really where Daniel's just been talking. So there's baby boomers, and the reason I've done it and asked you, and thank you again for doing that, is I have to communicate really in a different language to each and every one of you. And so when you're operating a club, when you're a board member, then you have to start to understand the differentials and thoughts behind each of these generations and how they've been brought up. So Generation X, some of them won't even know about Twin Towers. They don't know about we went down into a recession, etc. So you've got to start to think. And if I'm in that generation of baby boomers, and the way I was brought up, etc., certainly isn't anything to do with how the family are now. The family are so close together, and it's so lovely to hear Daniel and his team there, and I do know how close you are. So the millenniums treat their parents in a totally different way. They're the best pals, they go off together, etc. So we've got to understand that. And we've got to be a little bit more in the detail, understand their behaviors and their values. So why I say this is that you can imagine how you're communicating with a diverse membership, and also the club manager, how are you going to start to communicate with the future with your teams? And which brings me to the next slide, I think, Jamie.
They're coming to it. There we go.
All right. So this is very prominent with me. I've just done a year program with the PGA of Canada, and I'm doing their educational program on customer service. And teamship has been prominent with me. Now, I pinch that word, teamship. And for anybody that's a rugby lover, as myself, then that came from the book of Clive Woodward. So if he happens to listen, I've pinched it and I'm using it because it resonates with the next generation coming through or working at clubs. But building the right team is so important. But coming back to that communication of how we deliver it is vital as well, in terms of making sure that we're managing and understanding all generation is crucial. And age diversity is important, as gender and racial diversity in the work and customer space is going to be very prominent. But it's creating this cultural rhythm and getting everybody connected, and sharing that information is so important of where the club wants to go. So any board members or chairs that are out there and club managers, you've got to make sure that you include everybody. And I'm not teaching people to, my grandmother to suck eggs, you already know this, but I've got some wonderful ideas and wonderful opportunities to share to get these this type of culture really working within clubs, because I want to go to a club where I feel welcomed, and I want to make sure that I'm connecting with each and everyone that comes into that door. Getting that domain knowledge, understanding the business is important as well as everything else. It's fresh thinking comes from fresh sources. So we've got to be able to bring everybody involved, even the green staff. It's just as important. So the next slide, and this is one that I devised myself over, it might not look as it takes a long time, but it did. So I call it 30% plus 70% gives you the success. So anybody coming into a team of culture, You have customs at a golf club. You have the strategy, the mission, the vision, their values, the culture, and the history. History is important for anybody coming in, and that should be in the induction, in the orientation, whatever it is, by all means. But what do we want from there? We want to be able to create a memorable experience for everybody. And don't forget those touch points. I said everybody could arrive at those touch points, sometimes at the same time, sometimes within minutes, sometimes in a day. But we've got to try to make it consistently consistent, but everybody will share a different experience because of who they are sometimes. So it's getting people within your team that have that personality, that character, are able to express themselves, are vibrant, have that connectivity, understand quality, natural friendliness, and caring attention. Now, sometimes we find that we've got to just grow those people and motivate those people into that team as well as everything else. And I can assure you, guarantee you, if you create that, it takes time, it becomes addictive. And what at the end is that those are the customers that there. That's the goal. That's the goal. You've scored more and more goals, and what you will score is profitability as surplus and happy people. That's what we want. Your existing customers, your existing members are there. All right, to get new ones is difficult. But once you've got people there, then give them the experience and give them that natural friendliness. So that is the key. So the 30% plus 70%, I guarantee you, is success. And that is through that's through 25, 30 years of experience it take me to be able to put that slide together. Jamie, I think we're coming to, I'm conscious of the time in here. Oh, okay. My goodness, I'm over, well over. So just to read this, the 2020's expectations. Members will expect their clubs to know their business intimately and personalize experience. Experience is obviously very much the new word, certainly with the new members that you've just taken in over the last few months. Members will expect their clubs to be more proactive, anticipating their current and future needs. That came out on my first slide. And members will determine the experience they want and will expect clubs to enable that experience through various channels, including mobile, social, and personal interactions. Use the social channels to the advantage. Again, you can plan it. You can have a plan. It doesn't take a long time. You can have your own little internal marketing plan to be able to deliver it and get connected with everybody. So
when it comes to social, Eddie, as well, you know, as I said before, I'm 50. Yes. I don't necessarily understand it as much as my son understands it. To get younger people from within the club to champion that for you, passionate golfers who are younger, who can champion the social elements of how you can communicate on that platform, or those platforms.
Daniel, don't forget, I mean, you've got a family, don't forget that this generation want to see things on their phone. They want to see things on an iPad. They want to do something else and see it. I mean, I don't know if you have any experience on that, but my goodness me, well, it's fantastic, really.
I do, you know, I am, for good or bad, I'm a season ticket holder at Old Trafford. I share the tickets with a buddy of mine, so yeah. we would go, we would sort of flip-flop when we went. My son is a committed Manchester United fan. However, he would say to me if we go into a game, unless it was one of the top 2 or 3 games in the season, that actually an hour to the stadium, which of course if I live within an hour of Manchester United, I'm a proper fan rather than all the way from London. So an hour to the game, 20 minutes before kickoff, 90 minutes of the game, you know, an hour and a half to get home once the final whistle's gone. He would even say to me, Dad, you know, I'll just stay home and watch 15 minutes highlights on my phone. And he has access to go and see it live. Now, that's an indication of our direction of travel of society, not golf, not football, just society. And I think we desperately need to recognise how we can keep those young people. And there's a question coming, I think, a bit later on, and there's some questions pop in. You know, how do we keep our new junior members attached to the club? And I've got some thoughts on that for later. But we are not going to, whilst you stand and fan the flames of tradition, which is essential, that's so different from standing around and watching the embers of tradition fizzle out. And you're a huge advocate of that, Eddie. I'm proud of you for all the stuff you do and also the stuff you're doing with us today. But we need to find a way of fanning the flames of the really important traditions and not allowing some of the other traditions to kind of fizzle out again. That's really important to recognise.
Well, I think that just brings me to my final slides there, and I hope everybody's enjoyed it. I think there's quite a number of questions, so I'm looking forward to attempting to answer some of those as we move along. But Daniel, thank you very much for inviting me.
No, Eddie, thank you, and thank you for the time you've put into putting your presentation together and all the stuff that we've done in the past. You are an example to me of someone who is hugely committed to the game and looking to support clubs to be more successful. And more successful, is that money, or is it just bringing more people to our wonderful game? I think we look after bringing more people, and as ever in these circumstances, the rest to a degree looks after itself, doesn't it?
Great.
Just some of the slightly commercial bits here. Would be anybody's attended today with regard to the work that we do with PlayMoreGolf and the other products that sit inside that business. We'd love to come and do a health check with a club. This is not a sales pitch in that regard. It's about with our skills, experience, knowledge, that maybe we can talk to some clubs and point them in the right direction of how we believe the future looks. That doesn't come with a price tag. It comes with a conversation. And for those people who remember first lockdown, I stuck my hand in the air and said, anybody wants some consulting, some advice, some support, no fee. Let's just have a conversation, because there's lots of really good things happening out there. And why would every club know everything? In fact, it's very unlikely anybody does. And if we want to move into this new world from this sort of position of broadly novice to expert, there's a journey to take, isn't there? And I think if we see ourselves as doing this together and joining in, then I think there's a real opportunity there. With a team of people within the PlayMoreGolf business, and they're ready to act, help, and support. So please, if you have some interest, please just put your hand in the air, let us know, and that'll strike up a conversation, a phone call, and who knows what from there on.
So before we get into the Q&A, there are just contact details there of Eddie and Daniel. Feel free to drop them a note, whether it's about absolutely anything regarding your club, or if you're on board today from another golf business. Feel free to just let us know regarding that. The guys would be more than happy to have a conversation. But during this session, we've had a lot of questions, which is great. So Eddie and Daniel, if it's okay with you guys, I'm just going to read out them questions, and then if we can fire through them, that would be great. Obviously, we've still got over 50 people on here at the moment. So if you want to stay on to listen to the Q&A, then fantastic. We're not forcing you to do that. So it'd be great if you can hang on with us.
Jamie, we're suddenly going to see everybody just disappear. I'm devastated.
Oh, well, I think you'll be yeah. Let's just wait and see. We're down to 5 people now, but apart from that. I haven't got my video on, guys, because if I put my video on, that means Daniel loses his. So for some reason, we'll crack on through these questions. So the first one was there's been a few from Mark Gregorian. Sorry, Mark, if I'm saying your name incorrectly, but pronouncing it incorrectly. The user experience, Eddie, coming from a different leisure background is key for Mark. I think golf is missing a trick in my experience of being a current golf member. What short-term practical wins can a club do? And I think that's in regards to club experience for members. Reading in between Mark's thoughts there. So, what quick wins can golf clubs activate from to improve the experience that they're potentially having at their club at the moment? What quick wins, short-term practical wins?
Well, Mark, a lot of it can depend on resources, but let me just sort of share. There's no better word than communication and getting to know each and every member. And I mean, I do know of 2 golf clubs that have recently got on the phone to every member and spoken to them, and it's made a huge difference, I can't tell you. But from the points of view of really having a good team together that communicate clearly, just go down to the sort of situation of a Waitrose, for example. You go into there and it's renowned and it's got this brand value, and I can ask for a pot of salt or whatever, and the young man takes me all the way around and asks me, well, I don't necessarily want that, but we can take examples from that. And we mustn't just take our memberships for granted just because they come 4 or 5 times a week. They are contributing to that business. So there are many methods, and there's many ideas to deliver that. Again, that all depends on the culture of the club as well as everything else. I'm afraid that some clubs do need to look at the constitution and articles of association to renew a few things to make sure that they lighten themselves up a little bit.
I think something I've had the privilege to do at a couple of recent businesses that I've either involved in concept and then design and build but it's something that I think the vast majority of golf clubs can do, Eddie, is that on a Sunday, most clubs have a practice facility. There might only be a small area where you can hit 7 irons. But actually, what they've done is that they've created on there a small 9-hole golf course.
Yeah.
And it just takes some work from the greenkeeping team to present, a 9-hole golf. And then on a Sunday, just let members bring their children or their grandchildren, or their grandchildren, their children's friends, and just go have some fun.
Yeah.
In essence, it's free. If the noise from children enjoying themselves is disruptive to people playing the golf course 200 or 300 yards away, then that's just a decision for a club to make. I think listening to children and families having a good time as a soundtrack, I think would be a fabulous asset to golf clubs rather than it being something that should be of concern. So definitely something we've done and seen huge success in. My children are older, but if they say, Dad, can we do this? The easiest thing in the world is to say, yes, go have some fun, isn't it? And I think that's something I would suggest that most anybody can do.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Continuous communication between all sections of club business is important. And Mark, just a quickie there. I think the most important thing is really we've got to ask some of the members, and sometimes clubs are a little bit reluctant to do that. How can we improve?
Great. Thanks, thanks, Ali. Thanks, Daniel. Steve Salters asked, other than apps and tee sheet providers, are there any other tech touch points clubs could consider? Maybe to you on this one, Daniel, first of all.
I would suggest that some social media activity. When we look around the table at golf clubs about who are leading and driving golf clubs, invariably it's the more mature members in the club, and that's a good thing because there's stability there, a great deal of experience. But honestly, if you have a social media activity plan and have a couple of younger members on the board who will give you a real view of what the younger golfer is looking for, I think that would be hugely helpful without having to find a new silver bullet.
Well, if it can only be one Steve Salter, who's quite an expert on anything technology. So, Steve, a good question on your part. But obviously, there's a number of touch points. One would be the halfway house, and as you know, there's a number of clubs that are now booking their teas, coffees, etc. on the tee prior to it. The other thing is when the member arrives, there are now systems that you can actually see it on the software that individual has arrived into the club. Nothing nicer than to customize the experience for those arriving to the club at all. And Daniel, you made a very fine statement there. Why aren't we getting people on a board or a committee that are sort of in the areas of the millenniums in their 30s? Even if we just invite them in to be very truthful and say, what does this club need to do to improve? And even 2 clubs I know of have got their own young members committee where they meet up 3 times a year, and all that information then goes to the main board. So a good question, Steve.
Great, thanks, Steve. On to the next question, guys, from Alvin Leverton. Hi, Alvin. Many new juniors have joined Alvin's club, as they were unable to play other sports during the COVID situation and during COVID. Have you any thoughts on how best to retain those junior members that have joined at that period of time, going into 2021?
My point is, this is where the club professional, if you have a club professional, earns his keep, and there's no question about that. There's some great golf pros out there that are putting some amazing junior programs together. And as we know, that the teaching juniors now that there is restrictions and qualifications that you've got to go through, but really to bring them into the culture of the club, they don't always have to just go out on the golf course. It's looking for different opportunities and different activities to play within the club, as well as everything else. And this is changing the mindset of the club. You know, just taking them out and making them a part of that sort of culture within a club. It doesn't always have to be golf specific, but I do feel that the golf professional, male and female golf professionals, are making huge strides in developing our future membership.
Let those junior members bring their friends.
Yeah.
Again, I see children that they want to be with their friends. So much of the communication between the junior golfer and their friends, it's not in person, is it? When I was a young person, we played in the street with our friends. Now it's on Xbox, and there's 15 people playing the same game. But actually getting them together, the memories that my children create aren't the ones they do online. They're the ones they do in person. I would allow junior members to bring their friends, a bit like an open day for the established members. Have a couple of open days for the young junior members. Make nothing of it other than fun.
Great stuff. Thank you, guys. Moving on to, I think it's been mainly covered off through that question, actually, but another question from Mark Gregorian. Mark joined a golfing community by firstly caddying at a young age of 11. Something obviously which safeguarding and safe golf potentially restricts nowadays. But how can clubs better attract the young generation to golf as opposed to other leisure pursuits? I think you guys definitely touched on it there, especially Daniel with your question, with your answer about that 9-hole golf course on that piece of land, just to encourage and make it an environment people are comfortable with. But any other ways in regards to attracting those people versus potentially playing cricket in the summer or rugby in the winter?
I would go back to to get the junior members to come. I really feel that their parents need to be members. Because their grandparents play golf most likely in the middle of the week when children are at school. Mum and dad are potentially off at the weekend. I know I'm being somewhat stereotypical here, but they're off at the weekend as well. And we don't see, for all the great work that other organisations do, we don't see young people finding their own way to a golf club. It's daunting for individuals to come start playing the game, let alone for juniors just to get stuff from the best way to pitch up. So I would continue to drive that middle-aged golfer back into the game in association with the club, and through extension, get their children to come and become members. Why wouldn't you do, for the sake of what's a junior membership? £100, £95. Why don't you just bolt it on to the side of an established membership?
Yeah, that comes back to my point of family memberships is doing the right thing and getting youth involved in the game. We've got to sell it a little bit differently as well, in terms of welcoming people on board. But
we shouldn't forget the golfing bug exists. It's still not gone away. The golfing bug that caught all of us. But I mean, again, another story. When I was 7, I wanted a rally grifter bike, and my dad cut down an old set of golf clubs, split them in half, gave half to me and half to my twin brother I mentioned earlier. Yeah. we had many other distractions. We played every sport. We were very, reasonably gifted, lots of competitive sport. However, we found the time to play golf because we got the golf bug. But you only get the golf bug if we can get you through the front gates. And it was my father. It was my father who took us there. I don't think that's changed too much, but it's your mother or your father.
Great, thank you, guys. On to a question from a really good question from Peter Duggan. Apologies, Peter, I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Apart from building the right team, have you any tips on how to move a more traditional members club towards a focused business approach? This is it's a significant question that we'll probably talk about it all day. But Eddie, have you got a couple of points on that one? Moving up.
Yes, Peter, good question, and it's something that I'm presented with on a regular basis. Really, it's building the best team culture, and yes, there are some. Again, it comes to this generation and communicating to that different generation. On the whole, the majority of boards are 60 plus, and so don't quite view things quite the same way. And for some reason, when they get into their clubs, that becomes their sort of territory. And what you have to do is to really plan that out. And that's what I said in the beginning of all the slides. These are easy things to talk about. It's implementing them and being able to plan everything out in terms of how you're going to communicate that, and show some case studies and show some examples of how you can start to move that forward. And then it's just slowly, it's the political way of convincing, influencing, persuading people that those are the right steps. People are always frightened of change, aren't they? I mean, come on, we are frightened of change. And, and then this word tradition and what you wear, and, poor Tyrrell the other week having to wear a damn hoodie. What was all that about? Good God, if the young man wants to wear a hoodie, let him wear a hoodie. I wear a hoodie. But Peter, I'd be more than happy to have a further conversation with you. You've just got to build that trust and develop it, and probably just stop the stinking thinking and really start to make people aware that clubs are progressing, and you have to do that very gently.
And Eddie, that's just right in your wheelhouse, isn't it? To be fair, the conversations that we've had over many years, and your skilled touch to influence that transition of a golf club from being somebody, a business that potentially looks out the back window in the rearview mirror rather than looking out the front window about what's coming. And anybody on the call who has a similar challenge, Eddie has a very good, exceptionally guided hand to be able to help kids with that. So,
thank you.
That also is a question that you may have just touched on it there already, and Daniel, from Stuart Danchin. Hi, Stuart. How to convince the baby boomers who are mostly on boards and committees, and the traditional ways of running the club won't work with these with the different generations. He says, Stuart goes on to say that seems to be a big stumbling block for golf, and potentially his golf club at the moment in regards to that. But obviously, I know you just covered a bit off there, guys, about how to potentially slowly change that. But Stuart's also raising that point in regards to the generation of those people that potentially are making those decisions within the golf club.
I think, if I may just jump in there, Eddie, what I've seen and how this has worked best is that, even if it's just, somebody else joining currently a Zoom call, a Skype call, a Teams call, or in the not too distant future, be attending to talk from a viewpoint of the broader view of the golf industry and how golf clubs are being successful at that transition. My experiences, and I've been a member of a number of golf clubs, worked with hundreds of golf clubs. When a new voice can emerge and explain, and just explain and be heard, that everybody in the golf committee, in essence, has the best intention for the club. But sometimes their views narrow, and it can narrow to what they think is best in their best interest. Whereas when you start to scope out what the next 6 months, 6 years, 60 years looks like, I think people with the best interest of the club at heart have an ability to move quicker than most people would consider. They just need to listen to, maybe a new view that's still based around tradition and through established success. But I would encourage people to invite new voices in, people who have experience and knowledge.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thanks,
I
guys.
agree there, Stuart, and it can be frustrating, but people have got to change, and I'm more than happy to share examples of those clubs that have anyway.
Thanks, Eddie. Again, you touched on this one very soon, and Michael Soderquist asks, what do you think the future of dress codes is in golf? And again, you mentioned it earlier about the hoodie gate, dare I say, from a few weeks ago. But what are I think everyone's got an opinion on this, but what's your thoughts, Eddie?
Listen, I'm a supporting dress codes. I want to get people playing golf, and we've gone through so long. We've been portrayed. The game has been portrayed from a historical perspective, and we've now got to start to accept that we've got to move forward. And Hoodygate and Tyrrell and Tiger with no collar, and come on, they look smart. They're good-looking guys. You'd have them at your club, and just forget it. You can go to some golf clubs now, and this comes back to the family. Particularly two clubs I know very well. That they had Sunday lunch, and the grandfather was there, very well dressed in his jacket and tie. And his daughter and son-in-law, they were there, but in a casual dress. The grandchildren, they were there in very smart jeans, nice shirt. They were open neck, but they were behaving themselves. Everybody was happy. They enjoyed each other's company. They exchanged banter and jokes, went out on the putting green and had some fun. Now, come on, that's what we want to get into golf clubs. And I'm afraid some golf clubs have got to really just take the bull by the horns and just accept it.
Great. Thank you, Eddie. A question from Gary Bowman. Members' tee times are hard to secure with almost 95% being booked in advance. This leaves little space for visitor and society groups. This results in a loss of valuable income for clubs to pay for capital projects. How do clubs communicate this to members? So I suspect Gary's looking for some advice on how we would communicate to members almost the strategy and the importance of visitors and society groups are to the club. So if I come to you first, Daniel, any particular viewpoints and to add to how to communicate that to potentially the baby boomers about the importance of especially groups?
Well, I think there's a couple of things to consider maybe there. One of which is that if it's a golf club that's operated at 95% occupancy for the last 5 years, that will be a very, very successful golf club, and I'd suggest they put the price up. But my sense would be that it's something that's happened since post-lockdown. And there has been a significant increase in the demand for the game, hasn't it? I do not feel that will be sustained through spring next year. We're going to move into a period of time where people will have joined the membership. They will have paid, I imagine, a reduced amount of money to join the club, and then they're about to be presented with a full ticket price in spring. And I'm sure we all have our own view on what percentage of this year's joiners will be new in spring, if indeed they're presented with an invoice that's maybe twice the price. And they've had 5 months of winter, and there is undoubtedly a recession on the horizon. So I think some of the occupancy may take care of itself, unfortunately. Nothing inside me tells me that level of occupancy is going to continue. The one thing I would say could be really helpful is if clubs really, if they consider within their categories of membership that people get different levels of access to the golf club, and indeed fundamentally they get a restriction on booking window, then before that certain categories of members get access to the tee sheet, things like societies and groups are already booked in weeks, if not months in advance. So you can, with some careful thought and some looking at utilization trends, number of members, which members play when, you can really, it's like playing Tetris. You really can start to position in what you need to do to drive the most revenue out of the club. And I know that's quite a broad answer. Very happy to have a one-to-one call to explain how I think that could work individually for a club. But yeah, playing that game of Tetris with all the knowledge that the club have and the historical usage and number of members, actually there is a way to pick that lock. It's just that lock probably picked differently club by club.
Great. Thanks, Daniel. Just moving on to back to a question from Richard Jagger. Hi, Richard. Richard, I think obviously one of our clubs in Brough in the northeast there. Hi, Richard. Question for both of you, really. But where do you see the future of traditional membership models going? Do you think the shift towards a more flexible model, like ourselves at PlayMoreGolf, or even health club membership models, will grow in the coming years to accompany traditional membership models? I don't know what your thoughts on that, Daniel. If you want to start off with that one.
I've probably got a lot to say on that, so I wonder if maybe you want to go first.
Yeah, well, I can. I've been involved in the methods that we've had at Goodwood, and Richard, I've got a feeling you must be the son of David. So will you please pass on my kindest regards to your father? But Goodwood, I was involved with Goodwood when they changed the whole dynamics of the membership, and they did it from a clean sheet, really, which was quite a thing to do at that time. And it was really to start to attract affordable luxury, we called it, in terms of getting individuals to be a part of a club, and still maintaining the club ethos as well as everything else. And I have to say that Goodwood now have 2,500 members. It's got a good spirit, and obviously, yes, it's a flexible membership, and it works. And it helps so many people to either potentially have a second club, or they use it as their total membership. But it's become very, very popular, and I do feel that there'll be different methods that will be proposed, and I think that there's no question that if we've got to maintain the development of the game, we've got to look at different methods to change our business model. Daniel.
Yeah, no, just to sort of we feel the same. I think it's a blend, Jamie, is the answer. I think 7-day official membership will stay. I think it should stay, because for people who play a lot of golf, it's a perfect solution, isn't it? Why would we want to throw that out? I think the challenge comes, and it's proven, hasn't it? When we started this, and years ago now, was it 2012? With maybe no before that, but the De Vere Club, there was somewhere in excess of 1.7 million people held a traditional golf membership in the UK. Yeah? And now it's down to about 650,000, 700,000, even with the current spike. It just proves it's not for everybody. But the people who hold a traditional membership, it clearly works for them. I use the example a lot, don't I? Lots of us will have the same mobile telephone, but we have different packages, because I make many international phone calls on it. It tells me about the amount of time I spend on my phone. It's about 8 hours a day in amongst everything else that I do. Why would my bill and the way I pay for that be the same as someone who, in the way in which my son uses his phone, or my father, who probably needs help knowing which is the green button to press so it rings at 82, not particularly tech savvy. We shouldn't have the same mobile phone contract. And the same for golfers. If people have committed family commitments to sporting events, other things at weekends, and they want to play 10 or 15 times a year only, trying to sell them a 7-day membership is folly. I think the other thing, all those members who left membership, and we've got a stat that we use, don't we? In the last 10 years, 3 million people have been in and back out of golf membership. Trying to go back to those 3 million golfers to sell them something, let's be fair, when people leave golf clubs, it's like an extended divorce. You know, they leave under great suffering because they're leaving their buddies behind. The thought that a club tries to sell them back, it'd be like marrying your ex-wife. Why would you buy what you took 3 years painfully giving up? You just want to buy something that works for you, and thus providing other products other than just 7-day membership. It isn't about bringing cheap golf to your club. It's about bringing people back to being a member who traditional membership didn't work for. But just to caveat that, there's room for absolutely, in my view, forever and a day, there'll be an annual and traditional membership product. It's just, I don't know, different audiences are just looking for something different.
I definitely agree with that. Thank you, guys. So a good question here from Cameron Kenworthy. So Cameron, at their resort, have got an adventure golf course, which has seen lots of leisure and visitors, leisure visitors using from the surrounding area. And there's obviously lots of great stories, isn't there, commercially, and getting people to actually play a form of the game with adventure golf. But they're struggling to get their more, so to say, traditional golfers to use that facility. Is there any, you know, I've got a thought in regards to that golf member, and they're getting their family along, potentially their younger family, to get them engaged with that. But have you got any other, they're, you know, looking to drive revenue onto the adventure golf course from their potentially more traditional set golfers? How would you recommend and potentially give some tips of how to extract more commerciality from those more traditional golfers that may want to play 3, 4, 5 times a week, a normal round, because they're those baby boomers? How potentially to generate revenue and interest from them to use their adventure golf facility?
Well, I think, first of all, Cameron, I think adventure golf is fantastic. And a great example I have is I've got a grandson. There you are. I think it's an open market to go out to that generation to spend time with their grandchildren, male or female. You can go around the adventure golf. And the more they play it, the more they start to understand it and get the feel of it. And my question would be, how do we get them from adventure golf into the next level? And for golf clubs to accept that adventure golf is the start. You know, I think I always started at crazy golf. I think when I went to Scarborough finally on holidays, that's where I started. So that's I'm not devaluing adventure golf. I think it's fantastic. So my view would be, I'd like to look at your marketing strategy, your marketing plans, and are you actually marketing to that generation that's going to spend time with their grandchildren? I mean, Daniel mentioned it earlier, to be honest, so I've just pinched it a little bit from him, but I'm just giving myself as an example. And of course, grandparents can bring their children, but certainly it's a female and probably doesn't play golf. This is the time to, again, share the time with their parents. So hopefully that gives you an idea, and there must be markets to do that. And I'd be more than delighted, because I think that it's such wonderful. That Top Golf, bring it on. I think it's fantastic.
Actually, something else I would consider is that, you know, running an adventure golf, it's open 24/7, isn't it? It's not. It doesn't flood. It's, you know, if you've got floodlights, it's on. It's open when it's open. If you have a really clear view of your occupancy, I would create a way in which those members, on a specific time window where you know you have low utilization, that they can bring their children or grandchildren to play the game for free. Because if they love it, and they will, let's not get beat around the bush, they will love it, won't they? You know, children love this stuff. And then next time when they said, what do you want to go and do? They're going to say, I want to go back and play golf. So get them through the front door, but put it into a period of time where it's not eating into, you know, when you're at strong occupancy. But get them to come when you know historically that the adventure golf's quiet.
Well, I've been to one in Milton Keynes and one here in Chichester that's an indoor one. It is terrific. Anybody, if you haven't experienced it, find it, go it. And Cameron, where are you? Because we'll all come to you.
I consult into a business which is the Ullersthorpe Golf Resort. And I have just advised them, and we're in the process of building a new range facility. But vitally, we're putting on the side of that and It's in the forest actually, so it's a rainforest adventure golf. It's a fabulous component that works 24/7.
Definitely. Great, totally agree, guys. Thank you. I think I've touched base on this one, the penultimate question. So thanks for everybody who stayed with us for this period of time. There's got a couple more questions left. It's from Mark Gregorian. In your opinions, do clubs make the most of their members' skills, experience, and knowledge when trying to move a club forward in the right direction? In Mark's experience, they don't. That's probably linking back to other questions and answers we've had reference the potentially demographic of club committees and boards and councils, etc. And obviously, you advised earlier, Eddie, about moving them to progress a little bit in regards to that demographic and their thought process. But Mark's great question was basically, do they do obviously within 2, 3, 4, 500 members at a club, there's lots of experience and knowledge there. But do clubs make the most of that?
Mark, you've asked some really great questions and very interesting. Do they? No, absolutely not. Some of them don't even know who they've got as members. That comes from the induction. You should give a membership a full induction into the club. That member should know everything. So by the time that induction is completed, you know all about them. I know there's some, I mean, we can't live in this country without volunteers, and golf is one of those. We have to accept that and respect it. However, there are some people within golf clubs that would certainly give their time. They probably don't want to be on a board, but they would give their valuable time, their knowledge, their insights, and they've been very successful in whatever profession, career path they've taken. So do we use it? I don't honestly think we do.
I think that you mentioned it there, Eddie, that it's the volunteer status, isn't it? And so the volunteer almost has to be viewed as someone that contributes, but then they have to have the time to execute. And thus you see the average age of a board being what it is. If you have skilled people in the club, they probably have time to contribute and to give a view. And it may, and you think about what skills they could have that don't sit on the board, but expect them to come to a 2-hour meeting on a Tuesday evening, 4 times every Tuesday, for example. They've got family at home who they haven't seen, and then they're going to go and spend that time at the club. Just those two things are a massive rub. So for me, there are people who are active on the board that execute the plan, but you finding the skills within the membership that have an ability to contribute, because their time will be precious to them, because it's not money, is it? It's how much time do we get to spend with our families and all those sorts of things. If someone asks them to commit a lot of time, they won't do it. They can't do it because it's not their priority. But they can absolutely contribute with a well-considered view on what good could look like at the club. And I think it's about maybe shaping up what we ask of those members to do, rather than saying the only way you can be part of this is being on a committee. I've been in this industry for 25 years. I've never sat on a committee, never, because I don't feel like I would either have to be able to commit to it, because I wouldn't be able to, and then you have to question also whether you think your view will be truly embraced. So I think they're the two things that would have to evolve.
And just bookending that as well with your question there, Andrew, which is just pop in. That you've got a shortfall. You believe in your membership, you've got a shortfall of skill set and visions and strategic visions to help a club move forward. I think, and I'll answer that one, Andrew, for you. Would be great. Excuse me, doing exactly what you're doing at the moment, into counsel as much sort of external advice as you can, and lean on people that you can get advice from to help with that, but also add value into where your club wants to go. But obviously that says something to me, reference your demographic of member, and obviously getting those, being able to find those people within that club, in your club, but also at the same time lean on the likes of ourselves, Eddie, Daniel, to be able to help add value into what you're doing at your club, to give some of that advice as well. So if you can't find that within your membership skill set, then potentially look external to be able to help give you some advice and add some value into your club and where you want to go. So definitely look to do exactly what you're doing at the moment. Then the final question I've got here is from Terence Hayward. So first of all, with a statement, surely the key is more money and not just more golfers. There's an argument to be said for value per golfer versus just driving money off the back of that, which I would definitely agree with. Terence says we need to get more people valuing what membership brings and people seeing value and potentially paying what he terms in his words are a proper green fee and not necessarily discount and using third parties for discounted green fees. But yeah, obviously I've got my thoughts. I'm sure you guys have as well. But what your thoughts, Daniel, first of all?
I think the challenge that people face, of course, is that you have your own value of what you believe the value is. And you're at club level, people they're in control of their pricing. I think what we're talking about is that there's competitive pricing from local clubs that force that almost race to the bottom for pricing. There are a number of different revenue streams in the golf club, and I think it's about having a balanced approach to what you price and how you price it, because there is some elasticity in the market, isn't there? We see with clubs that we work with, and again, sorry to reference the PlayMoreGolf business, but I sat at a club recently. They were selling green fee online on a Saturday morning at £25, but they had a flexible membership product that when it washed out at the end of the year, the average value per round of golf that the customer had paid was £44 per round of golf. Nobody paid £44 per round of golf, not a 7-day member, not a green fee golfer, nobody. And 85% of those flexible members that they had at the club renewed at the end of the year because they felt they were getting value. So you really have to look at the whole of the club and look at how all of those individual categories, established or even new categories you introduce, where the opportunity is to drive value and profit. Very happy to have a separate conversation as well. I think, again, that sort of that Tetris approach to plugging in different strategies and different tactics to give the club what they're able to achieve.
Yeah, I think that's very, very wise comments there, Daniel. And my other point would be is how much does it cost to place a full ball on the tee? And I think by the time you've itemized it and looked at it, you'd have a huge surprise in terms of probably what you're getting in return. Good advice there, Daniel.
Great, thanks, guys. And Terence just followed up with that phrase "race to the bottom" is definitely what Terence is meaning to, and obviously how do we stop that? And I think you both spoke about that. I don't think it happens in reality, in practicality, overnight. It's a gradual process to be able to change that.
I would question there, Jamie. The real opportunity is that if a golf club who does do some tee time bookings, in online tee times, do they capture that person's details when they visit the club?
Yeah.
Because next time, nothing stops you from capturing those details, communicating directly with that person. They've got golf clubs, they're proper golfers. Find them a category that instead of them spreading their green fee pay around 5, 6, 7 clubs, depending upon who's £22 rather than £27 on a given day, get them, and if they pay 10 times a year, there's £300 sitting there. How do you get that person from being this nomadic green fee payer searching for value? Trust me, the vast majority of them would prefer to be a member if they could make it work for them. And the solution is to bring those golfers closer to you, whereas on occasions we see clubs pushing those people away. They're your golfers. You're just letting them go and play other golf clubs. Make them your member, make them your golfer. Because that just, I don't know, 70, 80% of the cases, we speak to golfers, thousands of golfers. Given a choice, if they could belong, they would. They're still going to go and play some weekly golf with their buddies, but people like an element of variety. If they had to choose belonging over variety, it's an 80-20 split in the favour of belonging, without a doubt.
Fantastic. Thank you, chaps. That rounds off all our questions. There was about 14 or 15 there. So thank you, everybody who contributed to that and has kept with us all the way through this webinar. So really appreciate everybody joining us. Before we wrap up, anything else to add yourself, Eddie?
No, just a huge thank you to everybody, and for staying on and asking the questions. As we said, they're so important, and there's some very interesting insights there that we can all learn from. So great to share this time with you, Jamie and Daniel, and PlayMoreGolf. I know what's happening in the world there, so I hope it all becomes successful, and I hope everybody can take advantage of the health check, because I think you'll all learn from it as well as everything else.
And
Daniel, thank you, Eddie. Daniel, yourself, before we wrap up?
Just to thank Eddie, and at the same time, you know, a phone call or an email to either myself or Eddie won't cost anybody a penny. You know, our first instinct is, how do we help the game of golf? You know, and so having a phone call, you know, shooting the breeze, talking about some advice in the first instance, that doesn't come with an invoice. If it was a cup, if we could have a cup of coffee, it would just cost you a cup of coffee. In this world, it just means I'm going to plug you into Marriage to make sure that we can put some time aside to talk. So I hope I get to hear from some of you. Be thrilled to offer any help and advice and support that I possibly can. And Jamie, for pulling all this together, really appreciate it. And I'm sure some of the technical issues at the beginning were more down to my fat fingers than anything that we did in setup.
I think we got through it.
I think we did just about.
Excellent.
And by the way, did we find anybody that Eddie didn't know, or whose father he didn't know? I was very impressed there, Eddie. Well done.
To be expected.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Eddie. Everyone, stay safe, and we'll be in touch soon. Thank you very much.
Catch up soon.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks,
All
Eddie.
the best.